We live in a culture that worships motion, productivity, progress, no days off, as if the constant grind were proof of our worth. But the body doesn't actually grow in the moments of effort. Muscles repair in stillness, energy renews in quiet, and the mind settles only when given space to breathe. Rest is not weakness. Rest is the invisible work that allows all the visible work to matter. To pause is not to lose momentum. It is to anchor ourselves so that we can move with greater strength. And rest is more than physical. It is the spirit's reminder that we are human, not machines. That we need recovery, not only from miles and weights, but from screens, from noise, from striving, from ourselves. True rest is not an absence of effort. It is the presence of peace. The real myth is not that rest days exist, but that we can live or run well without them. Today, we're going to be talking about rest. I've titled this episode, Are Rest Days a Myth? And you'll see why in a minute. We're also going to have a listener question at the end of this episode. I've got in the habit of forgetting to do listener questions at the end, and so have occasionally done Q&A episodes, which is fine. Happy to do that and continue doing that. But I would quite like to just have a segment of listener questions at the end. I want to keep it simple though. I want to have one question at the end from one of you. At the moment, the frequency of questions that are being submitted is less than it used to be. So I think, it only makes sense that we just do one every solo episode. Anyway, we've got a question at the end, which we'll do. And I think we'll try and keep that cadence up as long as we can. So I'm excited for that. But before we begin, have you ever felt like running just keeps letting you down? You start building momentum, you're finally in a rhythm, and then the same story hits again. A sore knee, a tight shin, a nagging hip, another setback. So you take time off, lose your fitness, and the cycle repeats. The thing is, this isn't actually your fault. Most runners are never actually taught how to train in a way that builds the body up instead of breaking it down. They just run, hoping the miles alone will make them better. But that's why so many people burn out, get injured, and lose the joy of running. Now, imagine the opposite. Imagine feeling strong, resilient, and confident in your body. Imagine knowing you're not just logging miles, you're training in a way that makes you durable, where strength training and running work hand in hand, where you stop guessing, stop winging it, and finally learn how to train properly for the long term. Well, that's exactly what you'll get with That's Runnable coaching. This is remote coaching, so wherever you are, you can join. You'll choose a level that's right for you, and then you'll get a complete program for both strength and running. You'll build a body that can actually handle the training, and you'll do it in a way that's productive, sustainable, and enjoyable. And right now, on the 1st of October, as I do this, there are 5 slots left before the 6th of October, which is the next intake. And there is a special offer for this very intake, which is 25% off for your first 3 months. That's £20 off every month for 3 months. As I said, there's currently, as we speak, 5 slots left. If you're ready to stop getting stuck in the same cycle and start building the strong, resilient runner you know you can be, check the show notes. There's a specific link there for this discount and sign up today. I'd love to have you on board and work with you. So, are rest days a myth? Do we really need them? Or is it just weakness in disguise? Well, I want to acknowledge the no days off sort of culture that is seductive. It is tempting to fall into the trap of thinking you need to have no days off, to work every day, to hustle hard every day, to get up and grind every single day. There's a lot of you listening to this podcast who are chasing extremely big goals. A lot of you are very driven. A lot of you are ultra runners. Some of you are not ultra runners, but you are striving for certain times in certain distances. Maybe some of you are grinding every day because you've just found this love for running and you are desperate to get better, to improve, and you like the grind, you like the effort. Well, there's a lot online that will appease that part of you, that will be quite attractive to people like you and to people like me. For a long time, I was very much of the view that I needed to work hard every day, no days off. And to some degree, I'm still kind of there in my head. There's still a natural part of me that wants to grind every day, that feels, I think, like some of my self-worth comes from working hard every day, putting in the work, no days off. I have been that guy before, and he is still in me. The one that thought rest was optional, and the one that thought if I had an optional rest day and didn't take the rest, but chose to work instead on that day, I felt good about that. I wonder if that's you. I wonder if you know you should have a rest day, and when it comes along, you still go out there and pound. You still go out there and put in the work, even though you were supposed to rest. Well, there's a lot to this, and we'll get onto it. But I guess this episode isn't going to explicitly answer are rest days a myth? Or maybe it will. Maybe I'll talk a little bit about rest days specifically. What the aim of this episode is to talk more broadly about rest in general, to emphasize its importance for recovery. But the reason I'm not talking specifically about just recovery, the reason I'm not talking about just recovery, and I'm not referring to rest as recovery, is because I think rest is broader than that and potentially more interesting. So we're going to try and take an approach that is broad and considers you not just as a runner, but as an entire person in true That's Runnable fashion. You know, I've been procrastinating almost all morning on this. I've been trying to figure out the best way to plan this solo episode. So I hope you enjoy it. Stick with me. Let's talk about rest. If you've been listening to this podcast for a while, if you have listened to any of the episodes from sort of earlier on, I guess it feels like I've been doing it for ages now. We are almost at an entire year of this podcast being alive and existing. October 2024 is when I started it, and I threw out a bunch of episodes back in 2024, and I think early 2025 I did an episode, I think it was episode 26, where I talked about the sort of this story behind That's Runnable. Excuse me. And I sort of delved into my childhood a little bit, and I was brought up in my upbringing was in a real Bible-believing Christian home. Went to church every week. Sundays were sacred, considered the day of rest, no exceptions as well. We had a lot of rules on a Sunday that many people would think are strange. And as a kid, I certainly, there were times where I felt embarrassed about maybe how arguably strange these rules are. But the whole idea of these rules on a Sunday was to keep Sunday different, keep Sunday the day of rest from everything worldly, essentially. Rest from television, from the radio, from almost anything non-Christian, actually. And as a kid, I didn't like this. I just thought they were just rules, restrictions, things I couldn't do. My parents took this quite seriously. And as an adult, I'm actually grateful for this. My adult perspective sees this discipline as freedom and carving out space to stop. There's wisdom in that. And I can't say that I have necessarily always taken this into my life. I think as the rebellious type, and as someone who's walked away from the church and from Christianity as a whole, I also, have walked away from the routines and discipline and rules and all that sort of stuff. And so Sundays aren't different for me. But I would like them to be. And recently I've tried and failed to not work on Sundays. And that sounds crazy to a lot of people because not everyone works every day of the week. But since I have become self-employed, I have been working every day. Really seldom taking a full day off. And for a while there, I tried to do Sundays. I'm still trying to do it, where I do nothing. Last Sunday, I did it. I did no work, and I was really happy. But I guess what I'm saying is that there is this ideology. Is it an ideology? There is this idea in Christianity and in many religions for a day of rest, a day to stop working, to step away from everything that you're pulled into during the week. And I think there's real value in that. So I wanted to sort of provide some context. We will get a little bit more deep and meaningful and potentially spiritual later on in this episode about rest in general and the importance of rest and how all-encompassing rest can be and should be. But I first want to talk about the science of rest and recovery before we dive into what it means beyond training, the whole human. Here at That's Runnable, we talk obviously about training, about how to optimize your training, how to become a better athlete, but you don't become a better athlete without becoming a better human as a whole and looking after yourself as an entire person. So we'll first talk about rest and recovery and the science behind it a little bit and the importance of it from a performance perspective. And then I want to dive a bit more deeply into the importance of rest as a person, as an entire being. So, a lot of people get this mixed up. We hear a lot, like I said, about no days off. We hear a lot of people praising and glorifying the work and only the work. And there's not much glorification of the opposite, of the rest, of the recovery. It's not that much fun to make content about a day where you're not running, where you're not, exercising. And so you'll see a lot of content about the work, about the long runs, about the interval sessions, about the gym session. about the 1 rep max in the gym. You'll see a lot of content about the work, and that is the majority of it, of course. But in clear practical language, training is a stress. Running breaks down muscle fibers, same as strength training. It taxes the nervous system and essentially creates micro trauma in the tissue. And that is what you're doing when you're out there, when you're working, when you're putting in the work. But adaptation, that is the growth, the strength, the endurance, adaptation happens not during the workout. Although it feels like it, right? It feels like that's what's happening. It feels like you're really getting stronger when you're lifting that weight. But it doesn't happen during the workout. It happens in the hours and days afterwards, in the recovery window. This is how it works. You break down the muscles so that they can build back up stronger. So rest isn't weakness. It's literally when you get stronger. All the research shows that athletes who take proper recovery reduce the risk of stress fractures, of tendon issues, of overtraining syndrome. All of the highest level athletes schedule recovery blocks. If you look at an athlete's entire year, a pro athlete's entire year, there are full periods of time in their year where it is dedicated to recovery and preparing themselves to get back to work. They are not working hard all year round. Compared to me, they are. Compared to you and me. They are working incredibly hard. But they take recovery so seriously. And there's tons of sleep studies as well, showing performance drops significantly when you reduce sleep. Amount of sleep and quality of sleep is really important. Just one bad night studies show that just one bad night can impact like reaction time and endurance. And it's actually quite scary when you look into sleep data, what sort of things happen when you get bad sleep. But this just emphasizes the importance of recovery. When you push in your body, when you really are working hard, you need to be disciplined about the recovery and about the rest. Because that's when you grow. That's when you get stronger. That's when all the hard work actually pays off. You're going to be a more productive athlete if you recover properly. Now, I have spoken about recovery a bit on the podcast, but I do also have a little video that usually is available to my coaching clients, which you can gain access to. I'll put a link in the show notes. It goes through the 3 pillars of recovery. Getting the basics right for your recovery is essential. But today we're not really talking explicitly about recovery. We're not talking about nutrition and sleep and movement. We're talking about rest in general and the idea of rest. So, with all that being said, if you're ignoring rest, you are not just risking injury. You are leaving gains on the table. You're not just risking injury. You're leaving gains on the table. Okay. So we've spoken about this idea in the fitness space, about no days off, about rest days being a myth. On a previous That's Notable episode with Josh, we reacted in a triggered segment about some bloke who tried to claim that rest days were a myth. We concluded that his idea of a rest day was too loose anyway, but it was bad general advice to give people. But we are constantly bombarded by no days off, work harder, work, put in the work, grind, hustle. But there is some importance in rest, and it is an age-old concept across all religions, this idea of rest and peace and recharging. In my own family religion, grew up in a Christian home where the Sabbath or Sundays were sacred. A day of rest every week. And we've spoken about the practical performance advantages of rest, of recovery, of making sure you prioritize it, because it is what it helps to prevent injuries. It is what builds you up, and it is a more productive way to train, to incorporate rest appropriately in your training. There's no good just working hard the whole time without resting and without allowing your body to build back up and get stronger. So now I want to talk about beyond training. I want to talk about the whole human. Rest isn't just about your muscles. We get caught up just thinking about how we need to rest because we need to recover so that we can perform better. This is all important and true, of course. But rest isn't just about your body recovering. You are an entire person. Difficult to disagree with that. You are a full human. You carry so many stresses. You might be running right now thinking about those stresses. You may have switched off from this episode, and my voice is just sort of in the background. And right now, you're thinking about work deadlines, relationship tension, family tension, whatever else. We're stressed a lot. Endlessly scrolling on screens, probably drinking too much alcohol, poor sleep. All of this stress, everything that's going on in your life outside of your running, these all tax the nervous system and add invisible training load. That's how I like to think of it. There's additional training load on top of your training that you need to deal with. Yes, your running might help with your processing of these stresses and extra tasks and things that are going on in your head, of course. But it's a lot to deal with. So I want to invite you to think of your rest days not just as a skipped workout or just letting your body recover. I want you to think of rest far more deeply than that. Think of it as deep rest, finding peace, really slowing down. Put your phone in another room for a few hours. I know that recently I've been on my phone too much. I've been trying to post more frequently on social media. Sort of gave myself a little bit of a task to post at least 100 times in the space of 100 days. Social media is a big part of what I do. I make content, try to reach people, an audience, and with that, try to attract people in to my coaching so I can make a living. Coaching is what I do, and content is a huge part of that. And so I gave myself this task to make 100 videos, 100 posts in 100 days. What has that led to in the first 30 days? It's led to being sucked in, to consuming far more, and downstream of overconsumption of social media, in my mind anyway, in my experience, is stress. I need to apply discipline. When I'm resting, I need to grab my Kindle and not my phone. I need to turn the phone off. I need to make sure I'm not looking at my phone early in the morning. I'm resting from it. It might feel like rest might be the easy thing to do, because you have rest and you have work, and work requires discipline, and rest, well, that's easy, right? You can just do what you want. I don't see it like that. I think rest quite often requires as much, or even if not more, discipline. It's easy to just pick up your phone, tap, you're in Instagram, scroll. That's easy. It requires discipline to rest from that. To catch yourself in the action. Go for a walk with no headphones. Listen to your environment. If you can, go for a walk without your phone. With no headphones. No phone. No nothing. How crazy is it that that's crazy? Sit with your breath for 5 minutes. You don't have to be a Buddhist to benefit from some meditation. Sit, be still, breathe. Maybe cook a slow meal without multitasking. Cook it without music on. Focus on the process. There are plenty of things that I could talk about. Read. I've found recently that I've been back reading my Kindle, which I'm doing mostly because I'm sort of on the move. I'm traveling light, and I don't have my books. And to be frank, I'm reading more because it's the Kindle. It's just like it makes it easy to pick up and read. I can do it to go to sleep. Reading always calms me down. Always calms me down. Read. Rest is a holistic practice. It's not just for your legs. It's for your whole being. There are certain things that will calm you down, whether you're meditating, whether you're just going for a walk. It might be running, but we're talking about trying to really rest here. Someone messaged me, a client of mine messaged me, Johnny, I'm sure you won't mind me saying, and he was like, feeling tired, lethargic, and unenthused. He needed to rest. Needed some time off. Some time to just take it less seriously. To chill out. And I told him it's not about just resting and, watching Netflix and chilling, whatever. It's about really trying to rest from the overstimulation that you have. Really just looking after yourself. Slowing down. Trying as hard as you can to not constantly be striving and pushing and producing and creating. Sometimes we just need to stop. Look after your whole being. There is a sort of spiritual side to rest. And maybe you're not into this sort of stuff. Maybe, you think spirituality is BS. I certainly used to be like that. When I stepped away from my faith and became an atheist, someone who's not a theist, when I decided I couldn't believe in God anymore, this idea of an interventionist being, I sort of then became really aggressive with the idea that spirituality doesn't exist. I got sensitive to even the term spirituality. But now, I'm not even that sensitive to the word God. Because people define the word God differently, don't they? I'm certainly not sensitive to the word spirituality. I think there's more we can tune in with than the material. Anyway, I'm getting ahead of myself. What I'm trying to say is that there is this spiritual side of rest. This idea of Sabbath, a pause, not just from work, but from striving. This is age-old. I want you to consider rest as trust, letting go of the need to constantly produce. We don't get faster by always pushing. But we get faster and we improve and we become fitter and we train more productively by letting go and trusting the process. This is true. I'm going to share something with you now. Something that I'm dealing with. Sometimes, rest it's not always physical, right? Like we've been talking about. Often it's something that's going on inside, in your head. What is causing the stress? It might be quite simple. You might be stressed with your business, with work. The kids might be stressing you out, man. There's a lot of parents on here who might be even frustrated at this episode, who've switched it off already because they can't seem to get any rest. But there's a lot to be said for rest from inner turmoil. Rest isn't just physical. Sometimes it's about facing what's inside so it stops consuming energy in the background. Sometimes it's about facing what's inside so it stops consuming what's in the background. I'm dealing with something at the moment, an inner turmoil. And I need to face it. I believe it's causing a lot of stress. I believe it's something that I need to be honest about. I think of the idea of great white sharks. There are some people out there who have discovered that if you face up to a great white, it turns around. Sometimes facing your fears, the thing that's eaten you inside, is really what will give you peace. Rest is peace. And peace often requires courage. So, just some practical takeaways then. We've spoken about the idea of rest being something that people are scared of, an obsession with no days off mentality. Rest is for the weak. You can take your rest days, but I'll be one day ahead. I'm calling bullshit on that. We talked about, something I learnt from my upbringing, from the Christian faith, from having one day a week that is important and sacred, and the Sabbath and a day of rest. You can go back to episode 26 if you want to hear more about that. About me, I guess. We talked about the science of rest and recovery, and how it just is more productive to rest properly, to recover properly, and perhaps even have a day off. We spoke about the whole human, beyond training, beyond the physical. How rest is holistic. It's a practice, not just for your legs, but for your whole being. Thinking about what it is that is causing stress and heightened activity in the nervous system. Scrolling on your phone, always checking your notifications. Maybe there's someone in your life who you need to silence for a second. Setting boundaries, being disciplined, thinking about your whole self. Do some practical things. Sit with yourself for 5 minutes every day. Every morning I start my day with some mobility, some meditation, and in recent days I've been doing some breath work. It's helped. We spoke about the spiritual side of rest, the idea of Sabbath, a pause not just from work but from striving, and how this connects to running. How we don't just get faster by pushing and pushing and pushing, but we get better at running by resting, by recovering, by listening, by letting go and trusting the process. And finally, we spoke about rest from inner turmoil. Is there something that you're not facing? Is there a truth you know deep down that's causing stress, resentment, strife in your mind and in your chest? Well, I'm telling you as much as I'm telling myself, maybe it's time to face up to that. To act with courage and swim towards the great white. Okay, some practical takeaways then. Here's one. Maybe try and reframe rest days as adaptation days. Maybe try and reframe rest days as adaptation days. Just a little different way to think about it. I don't know, maybe. A couple of quick fire pieces of advice. I often talk about listening to your body. You have to really listen sometimes. And listening to your body isn't just, I think I know that I've got, a slight issue here and I need to maybe take a rest or whatever. That kind of is what it is. But it also requires ignoring the ego. Having a real ability to be in tune with what you need has to be louder than your desire to listen to the ego. So, trying to think of an example. A simple example: if you have a bit of a calf, if you've got a bit of a tight calf, right, and it's actually causing a little bit of an issue for the last 3-4 days, it's been causing a bit of an issue, and you have an interval session coming up. Your ego might say, do the interval session Don't be weak. It'll sort itself out. But your body, if you listen to it, is telling you you're not ready. You can't actually do this to the best of your abilities. You're not going to get much out of this. There's too much risk. Rest. Or change it up. Do an easy run. Listen to your body. Second, sleep. This is your number one recovery tool. Make sure you're getting good sleep if you can. I say if you can because I've been attacked by the parents before. I know it's hard. But where you can, if you can. For a lot of you, you don't have kids. You don't have excuses. A lot of you are drinking too much. I know that to be true. A lot of you just aren't sleeping enough. Get a good routine going. Active rest. Walking, yoga, light mobility. You know, this whole thing, we've just been talking about rest as if, you're doing nothing. We think about rest, we think about blood flow as well. If you're thinking about recovery, we want to think about movement. Untaxing, like things that aren't going to be taxing on your body. You might just want to go for a walk. You might want to just, do some yoga, some light mobility. Rest is not doing nothing. Keep it active, keep moving. Every day, get out there and live. And finally, schedule it in. Schedule it in. Like you would your training. Be strict about it. Put it in your diary. It might be that you want to adopt Sundays as your full rest day, where you don't look at your phone, you don't look at anything, you spend time with your partner or with your family, whatever, and you just rest. Most of my coaching and content is about sustainable training. Episode 5 covers the 5 principles of training sustainably, running sustainably. There's a free PDF in the show notes. I'll throw that in again if you want that. But most of my coaching focuses on this idea of sustainable training. And rest is such a key part of that. Making sure you rest properly, you rest deeply, and you recover well is essential. So, are rest days a myth? Well, I think the real myth is that success comes from never stopping. In reality, rest is where growth happens. This week, take one real rest day. And when I say a real rest day, rest your body, rest your mind, and if you're open to the idea, rest your spirit. Okay, we're going to finish this episode off with a listener question. So let me just load it up. Where are we going here? I had this ready. This listener question is from Daniela from Atlanta. We've got a repeat questioner here. Thanks, Daniela, for asking the questions. If you, again, I will plug this. If you want to ask a question, if you want it answered on the podcast in a future episode, at the end of a future episode, or on a Q&A, if you've got a burning question, if you just maybe you're just wondering something right now, maybe you want to challenge something I said, or you just want to share something. You just want to share something that's happened to you and something you think might be encouraging, then go to the show notes. There's a link there. Click it, record a 1-minute voice note, and I'll feature it. Okay, Daniela.
Hey, Tommy. It's Daniela from Atlanta, Georgia. Congrats on all that you've done, coming to the States and all. Moving to Vietnam now. I hope you guys are settling in all right. I just had a race this past Sunday and crushed my previous time by 15 minutes, which is amazing. So I'll take that win. I'm still grinding. I'm not past my prime. just listen to your podcast. So cool. But yeah, I do not have a good relationship with lifting weights, getting in the gym, getting the strength that I need. So, how do I get started? Hey, Tommy, and just for context, this was a half marathon, 13.1 miles and 21 kilometers, and I've been at it for about a year and 9 months now. I don't mind revealing my age. I'm 45 years old. So yeah, I find so much joy and um, in it. And man, I'm gonna share my story someday. But it's been amazing um, what I've been able to accomplish at a ripe age of 45. Anyway, bless.
Nice. Thanks, Daniela. Appreciate the questions as always, and massive congratulations on a 15-minute PR on a half marathon. That's big. Big stuff. Clearly you are still grinding, still finding your prime, chasing that. Massive congrats. So your question was, you've never had a good relationship with lifting. And so obviously, if I was talking to you back and forth, I would try and understand a little bit more about that bad relationship with it. But I think many people might resonate with this. There are so many runners who don't like strength training. And there's also, I feel like strength training has often been seen as like a necessity, like something that we've got to do it. Yeah, I should probably do it. And a lot of people get away with not doing it, so that's fine. And, you know, frankly, you don't need to do that much. If you really are just doing it so that you can improve your running, you don't need to do that much. Studies show that you really only need to do like 1 or 2 hours a week to see huge differences. So you really don't need to do that much. But I want to sort of challenge, I've always wanted to sort of challenge this idea that strength training isn't for me, you know. I think there is this bump that you have to get over. There's this hump you have to get over with strength training if you're not into it initially. And it's the same with running. There's this old trope that if you don't like running, you haven't run enough. And I think the same is with strength training. If you think you don't like strength training, you just haven't done it enough. I really do believe that strength training is one of these things that is possibly the most rewarding thing you can do in fitness and exercise. It really does make you feel good once you get to a point where you can really push those weights and really pull those weights and lift those weights and get really strong. And when you start noticing physical differences in your body, it's an extremely motivating thing. And it's why a lot of people get so obsessed with it, with strength training. It was one of the reasons. At the end of the day, you know, a lot of people want to grow muscles. So it's nice. But I want to try and flip your sort of perspective on strength training from I should do this, I need to do this, I have to do it, to I want to do it. It excites me. It's a challenge I want to actually rise to. One thing is you have this great opportunity as a newbie, as someone who's not really very confident in the gym, you have this great opportunity to improve at a crazy rate, because everyone knows that when you're new to something, the improvements are rapid. So you have this great exciting thing ahead of you that if you were to just show up consistently in the gym, and I'll tell you briefly how in a second, you will see massive improvements very quickly, which is a huge boost. So there's something exciting there waiting for you. But to literally answer your question, how do I get started? I mean, I often want to just tell people to stick with the basic lifts. Think about hinge, squat, and lunge. And then for, upper body, You want to be doing like bench presses, some pulls, some like, if you can get some sort of pull-up equivalent going. It really depends what sort of equipment you have. Some rows and some core trunk work. But essentially, to keep it really simple, just think about, for now, hinge, squat, lunge. So with the hinge, you want to go in there and get the deadlift going. I mean, the deadlift is one of the most. It's probably, if someone would say to me, what's the one exercise you would tell everyone to do in the gym? Just one exercise. Not that, I don't think that's a fair question. If I had to choose, it'd be the deadlift. It's just so good for your entire posterior chain. It's going to be really good for your running specifically and overall strength. And once you get up to lifting quite a lot of weight for you, it's just great for the entire central nervous system. Squats. Oh yeah, and just to stay on the deadlift, Romanian deadlift, single leg Romanian deadlift, all of that sort of stuff. Any sort of hinge variation, really great. Squats, barbell squats. You might want to start with a goblet squat with a dumbbell or a kettlebell. You might want to just do squats with dumbbells. Plenty you can do with squats. I've gone blank on the third one. Lunge. And lunges, any sort of lunge with weights, dumbbells either side. And that's also, we're talking about sort of split squat variations as well. So, back foot on a step of some kind and getting a single leg sort of squat movement, lunge, split squat movement with your front leg. Absolutely humbling. That sort of stuff is going to massively improve your running and make you feel really strong. Initially, it will hurt a lot. And so I always try and encourage my clients with the programs that they're on to just be going through the movements and not lifting much weight at all, and just going through the movements, getting used to the movements, and then start building on the weight and progressively overloading from there. But that's how I would start. Hinge, squat, lunge. Keep it simple. Go twice a week. 5 exercises per session, let's say. And if you want a structure, if you want to have a full program for your running and your strength, you know where to come. My coaching hub provides exactly that. And it is perfect for people who don't know what they're doing in the gym. This is the whole purpose of my coaching. It's for people who want to get stronger, more durable in the gym and out on the mountains or out on the pavement, and just feel more capable, stronger, more resilient, more injury-free, less injury-prone. Okay. I hope you've enjoyed this episode. It's been a real one. I tried to really try and go deeper into the idea of rest. I hope you enjoyed it. Give me some feedback. Let me know. I hope it was a good accompaniment to your run if you're out there still. If you would like to support this podcast, if you'd like to support what I'm doing, check the show notes. I've got plenty of links down there which you can check out. There is no additional sponsor to this episode. I just am plugging my coaching. And you can rate the podcast as well. Please do rate the podcast. I love it when I see ratings coming through. It really does wonders for the podcast as well. It sort of pushes the podcast out to new listeners. And of course, the more we can grow it, the more we can get sponsors on, the more we can keep this a viable thing, and the more people it can reach. So if you think it's valuable, if you think it's helped you, do share it. I love seeing it shared on Instagram or whatever as well. Feel free to follow That's Runnable on Instagram. And I hope you look after yourself. Run the runnable. Keep showing up for yourself. And I'll see you next time.